Last week, I told you the story of my grandma's quilts, the room full of quilts. After that episode, I couldn't stop thinking about something the sacrifice that my grandma made. We live in a world that is obsessed with convenience, with fast food, with fast shipping, with fast results, with fast success. And yet, sitting in that room surrounded by quilts that my grandma made, I was looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of stitches, years of consistency, years of showing up, years of doing something that most people would never have the patience to do. And it made me ask a lot of questions. Questions that I haven't been able to get out of my head. What are we building today that it's still going to matter in 20 years? Not what are we buying, not what are we consuming, not what are we posting. What are we actually building? Legacy isn't built on one moment. It's built on one decision, one conversation, one sacrifice, one act of faithfulness at a time. And I think that the lesson hidden inside of my grandma's quilts will tell us just that. Today, I'm going to talk about the things that are quietly shaping us, the things that seem so small, the things that feel inconvenient, the things that no one is applauding, the things that might become someone else's blessing long after you're gone. Welcome to the Catalyst Table. I'm your host, Lisa Jenkins. For over 15 years, I have helped leaders, coaches, entrepreneurs, parents, and everyday people navigate real life and real challenges. This isn't a show about perfection. It's not about having all the answers, and it's definitely not about adding more noise to your life. It's about cutting through the noise, getting rid of the things that are not serving you. Here at the Catalyst Table, we're going to talk about people, communication, growth, leadership, faith, mindset, and relationships. Plus, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to win. Catalysts don't sit on the sidelines waiting for perfect timing. They don't spend their lives reaching to everything around them. They take action, they grow, they learn, they lead, and they become who God created them to be. Each week, we are going to have honest conversations, practical strategies, powerful questions, and real life lessons that you can apply right now, today. So, whether you're leading a team, building a business, raising a family, or just serving in the community, you are in the right place. Pull up a chair, let's get honest, let's get practical, and let's get started. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you got a chance to listen to last week's episode where I talk about the room full of quilts. There was so many things that I wanted to talk about with this post and spending time with my grandma that I had to break it up into many episodes because there's just so much to cover. What I think is more important is the lessons that we're learning about these quilts. The thing that sticks out to me the most when I step back and I step on the outside of the room full of quilts and what my grandma has done over the years is the sacrifice that it takes to do something like this. The sacrifice that it takes to stitch all these quilts together. The sacrifice and the patience that it takes to wait years to hand them out. My grandma has taught me a whole lot about being addicted to convenience because we want things right now. We want to place an order on Amazon and get it by 2 p.m. We want to go to the store and pick it up right now. And sometimes, and even for me, if I want a new blanket for my bed, and I have been there many times, I order it on Amazon. I go to the most convenient store that's going to get it to me the fastest. And when my grandma wants a blanket, she sews it and she waits a full year for that blanket to be done. But look at the patience and the sacrifice that it takes to stitch something together that she wants so bad. She doesn't just jump online and order it. She puts it together one stitch at a time. And I think that that's a really big lesson for all of us. It is something that I feel like we all need to pay attention to, and especially me. I have a patience problem. I want things right now. I can't even imagine waiting an entire year for a quilt. But what I did learn is that my grandma had a quilt that she made for me in her closet for almost 17 years. So why? Why did she wait to give it to me? Well, you can go listen to last week's episode and find out because we talk about that. But I had to wait. And that quilt's going to be beautiful on my bed. Instead, I'm just used to drop ship, right? So she had to be patient waiting to give it to me. She was patient putting all these quilts together. She sacrificed time and hours and just so many things, probably her whole entire life. My grandma is an avid quilter. She has learned patience. She has learned sacrifice and she has learned to push through pain. Yet we're addicted to convenience because we don't want to hurt, because we don't want to sacrifice, because we don't want to be patient. So the biggest lesson is slow down, learn to be patient, learn to wait things out. Because if you're going to make an impact in this world, if you're going to leave a legacy for someone, it takes time. Sometimes it can happen overnight. Sometimes it's one conversation. Sometimes it's one recipe. But even for those one things, I think that we discount them. What are the things that you can leave that are actually a legacy? Because not all of us want to sew. I have zero desire to sew. It is not something that I ever want to do. It is not something that I will probably ever do. In fact, my niece came over to my house a couple weeks ago, and it was just the cutest thing. She has been hearing the story of the quilts, and everyone's been talking about the quilts, and she has been super excited about getting her quilt. And she came over and I kept her for a few hours while my niece went to clean my grandma's bathrooms. And she said, Aunt Lisa, I want to learn to sew. And I was like, "Oh, no, I am not a sewer. How am I going to teach this kid to sew?" Well, I tried to distract her. I tried to get her off of it. I tried to get her busy on some other things. And she wanted to sew so bad. And I'm thinking in my head, I have no desire to sew. This is an inconvenience. I don't really want to do this. What am I doing? I can't do this. And she's like, I just want to make a pillow, Aunt Lisa. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, not my thing. She just wouldn't stop. And then my son said, Granny taught me how to do it on a piece of paper. And my daughter was like, yeah, she taught us how to do it on a piece of paper. So I grabbed needle and thread and a piece of paper and I'm showing her how to sew on a piece of paper. And if you were sitting in the room with us, you would laugh because it was so crooked and it was so bad. And I have zero patience to do that. We're sitting back and we're laughing, and she's making this line on this piece of paper with thread. And then she just would not stop. She just did not give up on, I want to make a pillow. So we're going through the house, we're trying to find all this material. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Like, what am I going to do for her? And we find this bandana that we had left over from a church function. And we start sewing the sides together and she makes this fun little pillow. I'm thinking in my head, can't I just buy a kid sewing kit, or can't I just run to Walmart and get something that's easier and more convenient? But that's not the way that my grandma would teach it. That's not what she wants. She wants us to learn to be patient and sew something that is beautiful. And that's what she's done over all of these years. So my niece left with a pillow, and that pillow wasn't very cute, but she loved it. And it's probably on her bed and it's not straight. And it looks like Lisa Jenkins sewed it. That day, I had to remember, what did my grandma teach me about sewing? What does she teach my kids about sewing? And that one act is what's actually leaving a legacy, because then it was passed on to my niece. And she's going to remember that moment forever. When we talk about leaving a legacy, that's what I'm talking about. One conversation, one act, one thing, one pillow, one crooked stitch. It doesn't matter. My grandma would have taught it differently and it would have been straight, but we did it, right? And my niece is going to remember that for the rest of her life. So, lesson two is the things that matter most are almost always inconvenient. I'm positive that at some point in my grandma's quilting career, that making quilts has become inconvenient. She probably wouldn't say that because she loves it. But when I think back on her time and I think back on the years that it's taken her, There had to be some inconvenience in there. She's probably missed things. She's probably spent a lot of time down in that basement that we will never be able to account for. Listen, love is inconvenient. Marriage is inconvenient. Raising kids is inconvenient. Leadership is inconvenient. Faith is inconvenient. Mentoring is inconvenient. Building a business is inconvenient. Everything that leaves a lasting impact is inconvenient. Just like when I was helping my niece sew that pillow. It took hours for us to put that pillow together. I had 100 things that I could have been doing. My grandma does not just have a room full of quilts. She has evidence of patience, evidence of inconvenience, evidence of sacrifice, evidence of love, evidence of pain. And then lesson 3, I think, is how we underestimate the power of repetition. It has taken my grandmother years upon years to sew quilts, to stitch, to quilt, to put batting and material together, to make the designs, to think about the designs, to think about who she was going to make that specific quilt for, to put names on these quilts, to find a place to put these quilts, all which required repetition. And we want all things to happen in one moment. We order drop ship from Amazon because we want it right now. But it doesn't always work like that. We want to have one dinner conversation with our kids and get results. We want everything to change. When I sit back and I look at the couples that I work with, one of the hardest things for them is repetition because they want things to change right now overnight. People want things to change right now overnight in their business, in their bank accounts. And what we all forget, including myself, is that it takes consistency and repetition, and consistency and repetition is something I hate. My personality style was not built for that. So it takes me way out of my comfort zone. But what really helps me is when I step back and I think about the repetition that it takes for my grandma to put all of these quilts together, even when her hands hurt. Even when she has other things to do, even when she's frustrated, she doesn't stop, she doesn't give up. Even when she messes up on that one quilt, even when it doesn't turn out to be the way that she wanted it to be, and she had to rip that quilt apart and start all over again. The quilt in her room only existed because she repeated the same action thousands of times. Through pain, through sacrifice, through inconvenience. We want transformation in our lives, in our business, in our families, in our bank accounts, all through intensity and one action. But quilters, like my grandma, they understand that it requires patience and time. Even if we don't want to admit it, life usually changes through repetition. One prayer, one conversation matters, but not just doing it one time. Doing it over and over and over and over again, pulling it apart, getting frustrated, going at it again. That's what it takes. But we want an outcome without pain. And so that's the 4th lesson today. Results come with pain. Everything that we do is painful to some extent. And I don't think that we really understand or acknowledge it. And everyone wants a quilt, but nobody wants arthritis. Everyone wants a business, but no one wants the sacrifice of building the business. Isn't it supposed to be easy? Isn't it supposed to happen in just a couple of months? Everyone, almost everyone, wants influence, but no one wants the years of failures and pain. Everyone wants a legacy, but no one wants the cost. Is what you're building right now within your family, within your team, within your business going to matter when you're gone? Is the pain that you're putting yourself through right now going to matter when you're gone? Are you trying to avoid pain? Because legacy and leaving things for people doesn't matter unless it costs you something. And it's not about what you're buying. It's not about what you're collecting. It's not about what you're consuming. And it's not about what you're creating or even what you're passing on. What you're investing in today might be someone else's blessing tomorrow. But legacy is not built on one big moment. It's not built on the thousands of dollars that you're working so hard to leave someone. Legacy is built on pain. It is built on thousands of small moments. It's built on thousands of conversations around a dinner table. It's built on showing up when it's inconvenient. It's built on teaching, serving, encouraging, gosh, loving people and mentoring them and sacrificing and staying faithful when it's really hard. My grandma thought she was making quilts, but she was building something much bigger than that. She was stitching memories together, she was stitching stories. She's leaving fingerprints on generations to come. Not because it's just a blanket, but because if these quilts are taken care of, they can move from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's not even about the quilts moving on. Those are tangible things that something can happen to. But when my niece was here and she was talking about learning to sew, my grandmother did that for her. Now that will be passed on for generations to come. And whether you realize it or not, I think you're doing the same thing. What are you stitching in the lives of people around you? What are your children learning from you? What are your grandchildren learning from you? What are you building? What conversations are you having? As I roll into lesson 5 here, I want you to remember something, that legacy and sacrifice and patience is all built and learned by you stopping right now to think about, what am I building that's going to outlive me? It's not about what you're buying, collecting, consuming, or building. We talked about that, right? But I want to really hit the point here that when my grandma built something, it was built on one stitch at a time. Most people do not spend their lives creating something that will outlive them. We focus on what's the next thing that we can buy? What's that thing that we could put in our hand right now? But those things that we buy, that we put in our hands right now, are not going to necessarily outlive us. What kind of quilt are you stitching together for the next generation? Are you doing that through conversations? Are you doing that through impacting people? Are you doing that through building a business? And I really want you to think about it through one stitch at a time, one tiny little stitch at a time. What am I building right now that is going to outlive me? That might require a little bit more patience, that might require sacrifice and pain, because nothing that is going to outlive you is supposed to be easy. I believe that faithfulness has become a lost art. I watched my grandma have a tremendous amount of faith. My grandma is faithful to what she's doing still today at 83 years old. She is active, she is moving, she loves life. She is faithful to the people she loves. She is faithful to the process. She is faithful when her hands are hurting so bad. She is faithful when it's not convenient. She is faithful when no one else is watching. She is faithful to the mission that God has placed in her heart, no matter what the cost. And that's how she impacts people. She is not worried about the noise around her. She isn't worried about what everyone else is doing or thinking. She's not really trying to impress anyone. She doesn't ask what their thoughts are. She doesn't ask them about the material that they want. She just sews. She simply stays faithful to her calling. And all of that inspires me to keep going on the hard days, the days that I question what I'm doing. And I want to know, what inspires you to keep going. This isn't just lessons about a quilt. This is lessons about life in general and what we are doing with it, the life that God has given us. And the way that she shows her faith, the way that she shows her love is through sitting down with patience and sacrifice and pain, and she puts it together in a quilt. When something happens to my grandma, God forbid, I can't even think about that day right now, I will have something from her that was built one day at a time through thousands of stitches that I can wrap around me, that I can pass on to my kids who will pass on to their kids. And when I wrap that quilt around me, when I look at that quilt on my bed, I'm going to remember the sacrifice and the pain and the patience that my grandma had and the love that she had for every one of us. But bigger than that, the faith that she had. It is written all over her quilts because the stitches in her quilts are not just stitches, they're Bible verses to me. They are memories. They are the thoughts that she had in her head while she was doing it. It was the music that she was listening to. It was the laughter of my grandma. So, the biggest question that I have for you today, and yes, we're talking about a room full of quilts and we're talking about the lessons that we're learning about the quilts, but also about patience and sacrifice and pain, is what are you willing to suffer for long enough that becomes someone else's blessing? Because to me, that's what quilts really are. Years of sacrifice and becoming someone else's comfort, years of inconvenience become someone else's gift. They're years of faithfulness becoming someone else's blessing. That is way bigger than just a quilt. I have a friend of mine. I posted a question in one of my Facebook groups and I asked, what are you leaving as a legacy? Because legacies are not about quilts. And again, it's not about money. She said, I'm actually putting a recipe book together for my daughter. And these are recipes that she loves. And I don't know about you, but there are times when I'm cooking and I go, gosh, what's that one thing that my mom always made? Or that one thing my grandma made? And I remember eating my grandma's spaghetti like it was yesterday. Only that was years ago, and my grandma can't even remember what she put in it. And I loved it. Well, my cousin loves it too. And, we've had this conversation about like, what was in that? What did she do? Somehow it probably had to do with love, right? Like it was her love that she was putting in it. But both of us remember like we would go to her house and we would have spaghetti and we loved it. Only we don't know what was in it. It's the same thing. My cousin and I both can, and we love canned pickles. And we can't remember. I mean, my grandma's pickles were my absolute favorite, and her too. And we don't know what was in it. We don't know what she did to those pickles. And we've tried and we've tried and we've tried and we've tried. So, the friend of mine, she said, I'm actually writing down all the recipes that my daughter loves because that's what I want to leave her. I want to pass it on. I want her to pass it on to her kids. It's not a recipe book that you could just buy off the shelf. It's her mom's recipes, which now become a legacy, something that she can pass on for generations. And that's what I want you to think about today is like, what is that thing that you can do right now? I want to get into the practical things that you can do to build a legacy for your family, for your kids that may not require sewing. Write them a letter, put it in a box, write them a letter every year on their birthday and tuck it away, something that they can keep and remember. And I'm even thinking about some of the stuff for my own kids. Make a recipe book that just has your recipes in it that your kids love that they can use for generations to come. Buy them a special book or something with a note in it from you. Maybe that's a Bible. I have Bibles that people have given me that I will never get rid of. And to me, that's a huge legacy. It is something that I will pass on to my kids, something that I absolutely love. Some people have the art of drawing. Draw your kids or your loved ones a picture, something that they can give. If you are a woodworker and you like to build things, go out in the garage right now and build them a coffee table. My son built us 2 nightstands in our bedroom, and I'll never get rid of them. To me, that will be passed on from generation to generation. See, it doesn't just have to be quilts, it can be anything. What are you building right now that is going to outlive you? What are you doing? It's not just about business, it's about the everyday things that we have going on that we could turn into some kind of legacy that we are going to now pass on generation to generation to generation. My kids are highly skilled and they do all these really cool things, and I just don't. I'm not like that. But if you're a skillful person like my husband and my kids, then build things and pass them on. Don't go buy them the next new phone and think that that's going to change their life because it's not. What's going to change their life is the things that you're passing on right now to your kids, to their grandkids, to the whole thing. So, as I leave you today, that's what I want you to really think about. What am I building right now that's going to outlive me? What am I teaching? What am I passing on? What am I stitching into the lives of the people around me? Because legacy isn't one big moment. It's not a bank account. It's built on one conversation at a time, one act of love at a time, one prayer at a time, one day at a time. Just like quilts sitting in my grandma's closet, she didn't build that legacy overnight. She built it through patience and years of hard work, years of sacrifice, years of showing up over and over and over again. And I think that's what all of us are being called to do, even me. These are lessons that I am remembering myself. We are not called to worry about the noise around us. We're not here to worry about what everyone else is doing. And I know that it feels good, but we're not really here to chase the recognition, but to stay faithful to what God has placed in our hearts and in our hands. Because one day, someone may be wrapped in that blessing that you're building right now. So here's a challenge for you this week. Take a few minutes and ask yourself, what am I building that will outlive me? Then take that one step. Write a letter, start the recipe book, have a conversation, teach the lesson, build the thing. Whatever it takes, just take it in one step. Don't just think about it, do it. I am all about action. I want you to get into action today and stop talking about it. And if this episode made you think about someone, go ahead and share it with a friend, with a family member, or someone who needs a reminder that small things matter, that the things in life that you are doing matters, and they may just be a blessing to someone around you, even when you don't see it. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I truly appreciate you being here. And next week, we're going to continue this series. We're going to continue this conversation because one of the biggest surprises in the entire story wasn't the quilt. It was the Facebook post. That is what started it. A simple post about my grandma's quilts that reached hundreds of thousands of people. And it taught me some really powerful lessons about impact, about social media, about attention, and the things we often get completely backwards, what we really get lost in, and the things that don't really matter. So make sure you come back to me next week because we are going to unpack what a room full of quilts taught me about influence and impact and why chasing algorithms might be costing you to miss what matters the most. Until then, clear the noise, take action, and make an impact today, not tomorrow. And never forget this: be who God created you to be. I'm Lisa Jenkins, and this is the Catalyst Table. We'll see you next week.